Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah.
A pleasure to meet. You know what? Right here now, the notepad basically just says that this is episode number 630. And yesterday I talked about the Modulus Ion Fire. I wasn't very proud of how it was. It was quite a disappointment in most ways. Somewhat of a letdown, and, well, I guess not too much can be said about it. But you know what? This one right here is nothing better. Because, yeah, a Megalodon. Who would have thought that a shark could all of a sudden be turned into a Nerf blaster, let alone a shark from prehistoric times? But anyways, this is in fact the Megalodon. So this just ain't your average Megalodon as it is. This is basically just the smaller sibling, also younger sibling of the Mastodon, which was a pretty big blaster for what it was. Its main trope that I have to disclose is that the Mastodon used a sort of minigun-like holding stance, as well as a giant drum, and it was also motorized. It was technically the first ever motorized Mega Blaster that we had out there in the market. But this is in fact a different story, a completely different story as a whole. The Megalodon, even though it bears some of the same sort of tropes and the like that the Mastodon itself had, it still has itself a grip. It still has a large drum that's capable of holding up to 20 darts if it's original or AccuStrike Mega Darts. Then of course you can put them in here, right in this large drum. And let me just say that, well, this one does not in fact allow for too much. Because overall its functionality seems to be a low. Because first of all, if you ever wanted to look down at the iron sights, then well, sometimes the grip up here might end up getting in the way. This wouldn't necessarily be the first time that a certain problem like this has taken place, because if you're familiar with certain older blasters out there, like the Vulcan or the Stampede or some blasters out there where obstruction when it comes to aiming down to sights like this seems to be a problem. But in this case, at least the grip is far above the iron sights, so you can at least see through the whole entire thing without having too much of an issue. But aiming down the sights when it comes to firing is certainly out of the question. Because, yeah, apparently the foregrip up here doubles as the priming mechanism. It seems to try to be innovative in one certain way, but I can't really say, because of how bulky the size of this thing is. It's real bulky, kind of heavy in most ways, mostly because of how large the drum itself is. I mean, that's just a huge amount of plastic right here that this thing must have been built. And I guess another big thing that I probably should disclose is the fact that, well, if you try hard enough at it, then, well, you can actually pull the drum right out of the blaster. I can't really say for sure that this is in fact recommended, but it still is possible. But overall, I'd probably just leave the drum in. Now, I've talked about this blaster as a whole back when Aftersalt was around throughout late 2020. And I've already given it quite a low score. And I could sure tell you. The reason being is simply because of how inaccurate this thing seems to be, how the foregrip up here seems to double as a priming mechanism, which could cause some delay in your timing. And the fact that you can actually hold it like this, I mean, of course you'd want to hold it like this just to pretend it's like a small chain gun of some sort, in a way. And this thing does try to do that, but looks kind of funky for what it is. Not having much of a barrel or much of a stock can almost leave this thing in the dust for its aesthetic look to it. I can't really say that I'm very honored to have something like this in my collection, let alone very intrigued on how this thing actually performs and it functions. So, oh, what do we have here? Familiar territory. This was the reason why this thing kind of sucks, really. The darts have trouble firing out of the drum sometimes. That's a big problem, because it's happened more than once already in the time that I've used this blaster. But to think that a 20 dart drum could have problems like this, I don't even know what to say anymore. I really don't. I guess we'll just leave it at that. This thing really does have some problems to it. And because I'm going back to this now, months after I already talked about this in Afterthought, I'd say it's a privilege to pretty much revisit some familiar territory like this. But when it comes to revisiting, I really do not like to go in some spots in my life that has anything to do with grief, sorrow, misfortune, and, well, endearment. So I guess this probably just goes that the Megalodon really does not do much justice at all, really. So, that's pretty much it there. I can't really say the Megalodon is probably the worst Mega Blaster out there, because there have been a few out there that have not done much better. So, I guess I don't really know for sure. But I will leave it at that. It still does get somewhat of a low score. Certainly below 5.0. Certainly. With a capital C. Well, anyways, that's pretty much it right now. But if you want to see more, go down to my channel with some new HJN content coming soon. Then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.